What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. As we are just around the corner from the next WWE Premium Live event Backlash, it's usually around this time that the WWE Draft would occur that could change the landscape of careers within the company. Sometimes established tag teams and factions are split apart, sometimes superstars would go on from having a terrible run on one brand to having a stellar run on the other brand. But as we continue doing our monthly John Cena videos for his retirement tour, a strange moment had occurred during the draft involving him. During the 2011 draft, after SmackDown had won a 20-man battle royal to get the first pick, SmackDown in a huge moment would acquire John Cena to be a part of the brand. However, when it came to the final draft pick at the end of the night, which was given to Raw after winning a 6-man tag team match, John Cena was drafted back to Monday Night Raw, marking the first and only time a superstar had been drafted twice in the same night. So had a lot of us wondering what would have happened if John Cena had stayed on SmackDown throughout 2011. So that's going to be the topic of today's video. We're discussing what if John Cena stayed on SmackDown in 2011. Now, I do want to mention that in the real timeline, the brand split would actually come to an end shortly after SummerSlam 2011, hence why there were the Raw Super shows during that time period. So for this video, the brand split will be in full effect throughout the entire year of 2011, starting with Extreme Rules all the way until TLC, but I will be going into 2012 ending off with WrestleMania 28. And if you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share this to all your friends, subscribe, and press the notification bell for when future episodes get released, and leave a comment down below about today's topic or suggesting a future topic for an episode of Pro Wrestling What If. So the first event would be Extreme Rules, where I think we would still have the triple threat steel cage match for the WWE Championship between John Cena, John Morrison, and The Miz. Now, the 2011 draft had happened on the Go Home show of Raw before Extreme Rules, and this match was already set beforehand. However, the only difference would be that John Cena doesn't walk out as the WWE Champion, since I don't think WWE would want that title to go on the SmackDown brand. So that leaves with either The Miz retaining or John Morrison winning the title, and with R-Truth interfering and costing John Morrison the match, it seems that The Miz would retain the WWE Championship and would hold on to it a little longer. Over the Limit. Now, although I wasn't planning on talking about the Raw side of things for the most part, I will sprinkle it here and there throughout this video. Like for this event, where The Miz in this case would be walking into the event as champion, but wouldn't be walking out as champion. Randy Orton, in my opinion, would be the one to take the title off of him, as I think with John Cena going to SmackDown results in Randy Orton staying on Raw, as he was the number 2 face of the entire WWE roster at the time. Which I guess we can go back to the SmackDown side of things, where I think Christian would face John Cena for the World Heavyweight Championship. In the real timeline, Christian had lost the World Heavyweight Championship to Randy Orton on the SmackDown after Extreme Rules. With John Cena on SmackDown, I think this would be a no-brainer that WWE would have done the same thing, especially since 2011 was still the era of Super Cena at the time. The rematch would take place between the two at Over the Limit that would once again result in John Cena, in this case, retaining the World Heavyweight Championship. For Capital Punishment, I think John Cena would be defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Sheamus, where Christian would be the special guest referee. Now, on the SmackDown after Over the Limit, Sheamus had defeated Christian and got the next shot at the World Heavyweight Championship. With what we saw with Sheamus's match, it took place on the June 3rd, 2011 episode of SmackDown with Christian as the special guest referee. With John Cena in this spot as champion instead of Randy Orton, I think the match would have taken place at Capital Punishment instead of SmackDown, especially with SmackDown at this time still being taped instead of live like it is now. And this is the same match where, although Christian was a biased referee towards the champion, he would hit him over the head with the title and turn heel in the process, thus continuing the rivalry with the champion. However, the next pay-per-view would be the last one between Christian and John Cena instead of SummerSlam like the Christian and Randy Orton feud. Money in the Bank. So I had already mentioned that Money in the Bank would be the final match between John Cena and Christian. This match with John Cena retaining because Vince McMahon would have never let Christian beat him. Now, Money in the Bank is definitely definitely one of those instances where I do have to discuss the Raw side of things, because the build up to Money in the Bank had the moment of CM Punk's pipe bomb that changed his entire career. Many people have wondered if that promo still happens if John Cena is on SmackDown instead of Raw. It's actually likely that CM Punk never gets to cut that promo because of John Cena not being on the roster to do that storyline with. If they were to do it, it would have been Randy Orton in that position and not John Cena. Sure, CM Punk could have talked about Randy Orton being handed the WWE Championship at No Mercy 2007 as a way of being an ass kisser to Vince McMahon, like he said about John Cena, but the problem here is that Randy Orton was never placed as the face of the WWE while John Cena was. With the words said in the pipe bomb, CM Punk would propel himself to be the anti-hero that rebelled against authority, and his golden goose being John Cena. But Randy Orton was also basically the tweener type of babyface that people liked more than John Cena, so it may have backfired on CM Punk. Another problem is that Randy Orton and CM Punk had already had a feud a few months prior with matches at WrestleMania 27 and Extreme Rules respectively, so who knows if they would even run this feud again. The one thing I will say is that with John Cena not on Raw, this could allow the summer of Punk to be able to flourish more than it did in the real timeline. That's also if the pipe bomb were to be executed as well it was in the real timeline. And it may have gotten CM Punk to eventually become the #1 face of Raw and the #2 face overall in the WWE. Up next would be SummerSlam, where I think John Cena defends the World Heavyweight Championship against Mark Henry. Mark Henry getting drafted to SmackDown in 2011 was probably the best thing to happen to him, as he got to have the best run of his entire career with the Hall of Pain. Mark Henry was already on the rise of being the top heel of SmackDown and essentially the WWE, and a match with John Cena at SummerSlam would have happened if John Cena was on SmackDown. Now, if you're in the mindset that the brand split still comes to an end shortly after SummerSlam, I think Mark Henry would have won the World Heavyweight Championship, with John Cena then going back to do most of his storylines on the flagship show of Raw. However, because of what I stated at the beginning, with the brand split still continuing after SummerSlam, the result I think would be either the countout victory we saw with the Mark Henry Sheamus match in the real timeline for SummerSlam, or with what I was thinking is the match ending in a double countout, so that way both men are protected while still continuing on with the feud between the two for the World Heavyweight Championship. Next up at Night of Champions, we would have another match between Mark Henry and John Cena for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, in the real timeline, this was the event where Mark Henry walked out with his first World Championship by defeating Randy Orton. Although Mark Henry is the only person to realistically defeat Super Cena and end his reign with how weak the SmackDown roster was in 2011, I do think John Cena would retain the title in this match. Once again, just like SummerSlam, it wouldn't be a pinfall or submission victory, but this time it would be a disqualification victory for John Cena. One thing Vince McMahon would do from time to time is extend a feud longer than it should have, example being Randy Orton and John Cena in 2009, so once again we would see another Mark Henry and John Cena match when it comes to the next pay-per-view. Which that next pay-per-view is Hell in a Cell, where we have Mark Henry against John Cena inside Hell in a Cell for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was a double countout finish at SummerSlam, a disqualification finish at Night of Champions, so it only makes sense that the Hell in a Cell structure would make his way into this feud to have a definitive finish. At some point, the cell door would break, and as John Cena is about to pick up the victory, out comes two men in black hoods who are revealed to be the recently fired Miz and R-Truth to make their way into the cage and beat him up. As John Cena is able to fight them off, Mark Henry takes advantage by hitting him with the World's Strongest Slam and becomes the new World Heavyweight Champion. Yes, unfortunately, Mark Henry doesn't get to win the title as cleanly as he did with Orton, but at the same time, we are dealing with a very protected John Cena during this time that wouldn't be losing clean. Next up would be Bragging Rights 2011. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wasn't the next pay-per-view the return of Vengeance? Yes it was, but I think had the brand split not ended in 2011, that it's very possible that they would have had Bragging Rights once again for at least another year, yet a lot of us weren't exactly fans of the previous year's event. In the real timeline, once John Laurinaitis was appointed the interim general manager of Monday Night Raw, he would rehire The Miz and R-Truth. In this timeline, it would be a way for Miz and R-Truth to be rewarded for helping Raw get in advantage for the upcoming bragging rights event, in which they would be 2 of the 5 participants added to Team Raw in the 10-man elimination tag team match. I know it's usually 14, but with the roster listed on the SmackDown Hotel website, a lot of them were either injured or released by the time the event would take place. I also do think that for this event, we could have had the champion versus champion concept that was later introduced at Survivor Series 2017. But a lot of the matches with the champions we had were heels, so that dynamic would have been a little bit weird to experiment. Perhaps a concept could have been introduced with a Raw competitor challenging for a SmackDown title and vice versa, which could be a way to still have Big Show versus Mark Henry for the World Heavyweight Championship that happened in the real timeline for Vengeance. That feud wouldn't have been able to happen in this timeline because the Big Show was sent to Raw during the draft, and it only happened when the brand split ended. Back to talking about the elimination match, Team Raw would have David Otunga, who was basically the sidekick of John Laurinaitis at this time, alongside Drew McIntyre, The Miz, Rey Mysterio, and R-Truth, against Team SmackDown, which would have Daniel Bryan, Christian, John Cena, Sheamus, and Wade Barrett. And John Cena would actually only be announced as a participant the night of the event, as an injury angle was done from the attack during the Hell in a Cell match. At one point, Team Raw would be declared the winners of the match, with Miz and R-Truth as the sole survivors of the match, with the match having ended up being 5-on-4, with there being a limited amount of SmackDown superstars. However, SmackDown General Manager Teddy Long would reveal that a 5th participant would make his way to the ring, which would end up being the returning John Cena, as he would end up eliminating both The Miz and R-Truth to pick up the win for Team SmackDown. Shoutout goes to Jackson Weingart, Jada Sanchez, Fox Starkiller, Lola Pines, Hayden Saravo, Mr. Randomizer, Harry Dynamite Storm, Spidey Fan Productions 2003, and Skolchin. And the reason that they ended up getting a shout out is because they joined our YouTube channel membership, which only cost $1.99 a month. Not only do you get the shout out, but you do get lots of other perks, including early access to every single video and shorts that we produce on this channel. So definitely consider joining our YouTube channel membership. It will be greatly appreciated and will go a long way of helping out this channel a lot. So definitely consider it, but let's get right back to the video. For Survivor Series, I think we would still have the tag team match with John Cena and The Rock against The Miz and R-Truth. Now, this match did happen in the real timeline, but even though John Cena is on SmackDown while The Miz and R-Truth were on Raw, I feel this match would have still happened, especially with this Survivor Series marking 15 years since The Rock's debut, that I think he was going to have a match regardless to warm him up for his eventual once-in-a-lifetime bout against John Cena at WrestleMania 28. This was also a way for John Cena to not be involved in the world title scene, while Mark Henry gets to have a new rival to defend the title against. At least for this case, because what I have in store for the next pay-per-view, but everything that had occurred in the real timeline involving the tag team match would still occur here as well, with John Cena and The Rock being able to coexist to win the match. The next event would be TLC, where John Cena and Mark Henry would face off one more time for the World Heavyweight Championship. After losing the World Heavyweight Championship at Hell in a Cell, John Cena had never gotten a rematch for the title, which is why this match is happening. Not only that, but in this timeline, TLC is where we would witness the return of Kane after being sidelined by Mark Henry many months prior. Like I had mentioned earlier, SmackDown was still taped and not live like Raw, where this moment had taken place in the real timeline. Kane teasing that he would attack Mark Henry, but instead attacks John Cena and costs him his rematch with Mark Henry, then retaining the World Heavyweight Championship. This moment can also still occur because prior to the brand split ending, Kane was on the SmackDown roster. And now with 2011 over, we are now in 2012, where we kick off with the Royal Rumble, and I think that John Cena would have been participating in the Royal Rumble match, and even though he is already scheduled to face The Rock at WrestleMania 28, he's got a reason for being in the match. That being that if John Cena were to win the match, he would invoke his championship title opportunity early, so that way if he wins the title, he would be able to defend it against The Rock at WrestleMania. Something that not only has already been teased throughout this timeline, but was teased in the real timeline when John Cena won the WWE Championship at Extreme Rules and told The Rock during his birthday celebration that he would plan on defending the title against him at WrestleMania. However, John Cena doesn't end up winning the match, as Kane would interfere interfere and cost him the match to continue the rivalry, which leads to Elimination Chamber, where we still have John Cena versus Kane in the ambulance match, which this match was only done as a filler feud so that John Cena could have something to do before facing The Rock at WrestleMania and rising above the hate that Kane was causing. And then last but not least, of course, would be WrestleMania 28, where we have the dubbed Once in a Lifetime, and you know how this ended up, where The Rock would actually pick up the victory as John Cena is disappointed on the ramp. And whether the brand split is over or not here in 2012, it is very likely that John Cena would be sent back to Monday Night Raw.